And speaking about your international experience, I know you traveled around the world a lot. How have you seen these experiences really shape your career or shape your role? And how has it benefited you?
One of the things that has really helped me in my career is getting out and seeing the way different things are done around the world. I lived in China for 3 years. I lived in the UK for 4 years. I traveled around and worked, spent 6 months in Brazil, basically working. So I was able to really see a lot of different things and how different things and how work was done around the world, how you do work around the world. And I think that really benefits you. And so one of the things that, maybe it was by luck, but I've learned that getting that broad base of experience as you move into roles that are more senior really, really helps you. So the fact that I lived in China, worked in China, know that business, know the owners, and from a hotel perspective there, it really helps me in my day-to-day job. And so when I can talk to our shareholders about what our business in China is, I actually have some credibility because I've been there and I've done it. And I think building that broad set of experiences is very valuable.
I think that's actually really fascinating. Can you even break that down a bit? Because I think one of the hardest things is, like you said, there's so many options maybe as someone comes into their careers. How do you think through, okay, this is kind of this is more the vertical step, like you said, but you're becoming kind of a one-lane expert. And then how do you kind of peer through this kind of trees and figure out, okay, maybe these are the other areas, because maybe it's not always as obvious, from that perspective of where to go next.
I actually just had someone that just joined us in a senior VP role. And I said, the first 6 months of the role, I just want you to work on relationship, really understand the people you're going to be working with, their motivation, what are they trying to accomplish, really understand that, and don't necessarily worry about short-term making that impact. Everybody wants to come in and make an impact, but really set yourself up for the future by building relationships. And so the other thing I tell my team, you may be surprised by this, is they'll have relationships with recruiters because they know and they see the kind of people that are getting promoted into roles and getting certain types of roles. So I always encourage my team to have relationships with those kind of folks and other people in the industry that can tell them and look at you objectively and say, you're kind of missing this. You should really go focus on this. And that's actually what they did for me. When I was in the controller role, one of the things I went to was a process with Spencer Stewart, who looked at kind of my background and said, Michael, really you need to be, yes, you've been CFO of China. It's not the biggest region in the IHG, but you really need to come back and do the Americas CFO role. And so that's what I did. I came back and did the Americas CFO role because that's going to prepare me to be CFO as a group.
So for individuals who are students who don't have as wide a network, or are first generation students who don't know as many people, how would you really advise them to go make those connections or to build that network that you mentioned?
I think you've got to get out there and be vulnerable. And I think that's listen, take your opportunity to meet people, introduce yourself. LinkedIn is a great way to connect with people, but don't let those connections die. You're not just checking a box that I signed up and I put LinkedIn and I connected with this person. Like, how do you find something in that you can have a discussion with them about project they're working on in your business? Ask them about it. Ask them to go to lunch. I think having that vulnerability and coming through not only as a employee, but as a leader is really, really important because we're all just people and we all make mistakes. We all do things that we wish we could do better. And I think being open and being honest and being vulnerable, having empathy to what other people are dealing with will help you build those relationships. And you just got to take the opportunity to get out there and do it and put yourself out there.
Can you maybe even talk about, well, even within that program itself, how do you see people be good mentees? Because I think there's a lot of talk about being a mentor, which is great, but there's, again, especially if you're early in your career, how do you kind of, like you said, help them make you successful? Are there any kind of tips that you've learned along the way yourself?
So I think that, for me, the best thing to do is build that relationship. You have to spend time together, go have lunch, have conversations, get to know one another on a more personal level. then you can begin to have conversations about work, or you got to build trust, because a lot of people are not naturally going to feel the ability to be vulnerable or get out and be open with somebody that is a very senior level. And so you have to build that trust so that you yourself are open. And many times what, as a mentor, I've seen is that people will only give you part of the story, right? They'll only give you their perspective. And so it's hard for you to give a balanced perspective if people aren't being completely honest with you and being able to tell you the things that they maybe did wrong there, and in a certain situation, or things they're thinking that may be wrong, and they shouldn't think of it that way. And so it's important to be open and build that trusting relationship and have a mentor that you can have a really honest conversation with.